The old alien stood before the Emperor's throne, his voice trembling, not from fear, but from memory. "Don't kill her." The words cut through the silence like a blade. Every officer in the Imperial chamber turned toward him, stunned that anyone, especially a veteran, would dare interrupt the Emperor himself. But Varric didn't bow. His skin was cracked like worn leather, his eyes pale and unblinking. He had seen wars that consumed entire civilizations, battles that left suns flickering like dying candles. And in all those centuries of blood, he had learned one truth about the universe. Some enemies you simply don't provoke. The Emperor leaned forward, his golden armor gleaming under the throne's light. "Explain yourself, veteran." Varric's throat clicked as he spoke, his voice a low rasp that carried across the hall. "You have captured a human. A woman named Captain Ilara Voss. She led their resistance. I know what your advisors whisper. Execute her publicly. Make an example of their defiance." He paused, mandibles tightening. "But listen to me. If you kill her, you will start a war that no fleet in this galaxy can win." A wave of laughter rippled through the council chamber. One admiral scoffed. "The humans are primitives. They barely reached the stars before our fleets burned their skies. They can't even—" Varric slammed his clawed hand against the metal floor. The sound silenced the room. "You think I haven't seen courage before? You think I don't know what fear looks like?" His eyes narrowed. "I fought beside humans in the old campaigns. I saw what they become when you take something from them that they love." The Emperor's expression turned to mild amusement. "You fear this single human woman?" Varric's voice broke into a whisper. "No, my Emperor. I fear what she represents. Their species does not surrender. They remember. They rebuild. And when they come for you, they will come like a storm without mercy." The Emperor rose, tall and magnificent, wings folding behind his back like the shadow of a god. "The Empire has stood for 10,000 years. One primitive world cannot challenge destiny." The veteran bowed his head slowly. "Destiny can bleed. I've seen it happen." But his words fell like stones into the abyss of arrogance. The Emperor gave his command with a casual flick of the hand. "Execute the human tomorrow. Make sure every world in our dominion watches." Varric closed his eyes. He didn't salute. He simply whispered, "Then the war begins tomorrow too." The next day, every broadcast in the galaxy carried the same image: Captain Ilara Voss, bound and defiant, standing before the execution platform. The humans called her the Unbroken Voice. Even in chains, her eyes burned with that quiet fury only humans carried, the kind that promised vengeance, not defeat. The Emperor himself oversaw the broadcast from the Grand Citadel. His voice boomed across the holonet. "Let this be a message to all who resist the Empire's order. Defiance ends only one way." But Ilara smiled. It was small, almost tender, but it froze every watching soul. Her last words echoed across 1,000 systems. "You think killing me will silence Earth? You've only given us something to fight for." The plasma bolt struck, and the light faded. Across the stars, billions of aliens cheered. The humans, on their scattered colonies and hidden bases, fell silent. And that silence was the beginning of the end. Varric watched the broadcast from a darkened chamber. His claws trembled as the screen dimmed to black. Around him, younger officers celebrated. The human resistance was broken, they said. Earth would finally fall in line. But the veteran didn't join their laughter. He had seen that look before, on the faces of another species long ago, the ones his empire had crushed, who vanished quietly into the night, only to return centuries later as executioners. He walked alone to the observation deck. Outside, the stars shimmered over the Empire's core worlds, beautiful, eternal, untouchable. Yet all he could see were the ghosts of what was coming. He murmured to himself, "They don't break like we do. They don't kneel. They burn." That night, Ilara's death became more than an execution. It became a legend. Across every surviving human outpost, her final words were repeated like prayer. Children whispered them. Soldiers carved them into the walls of their bunkers. Commanders played the footage before battle drills. "You think killing me will silence Earth? You've only given us something to fight for. The Zircon Empire thought they'd destroyed hope. In truth, they'd given it a martyr. Within weeks, the humans vanished from open space. Their transmissions ceased. Their colonies went dark. The Empire called it surrender. But Varric knew silence when it came with intent. It wasn't the quiet of defeat. It was the breathing pause before the roar. He tried once more to warn the Council. "They're not surrendering. They're preparing." The Emperor didn't even look at him this time. "Enough of your superstition, old one. Humanity is finished." Varric looked up at the great banners of the Empire hanging over the chamber, symbols of strength, dominance, and eternity, and all he could see was their reflection in the fire to come. On the far side of the galaxy, in the shadows of Earth's broken orbit, something vast and hidden began to awaken. Engine cores roared in secret bunkers. Forges burned hotter than they had in generations. Old warships, derelict and forgotten since the fall of Saul, were pulled from their graves, their names repainted with a single word beneath them: VOSS. The humans didn't send messages. They didn't make threats. They simply began to build. And when Varric saw the first reports of missing patrols along the outer rim, he closed his eyes and whispered the same 3 words that had started it all: "Don't kill her." The galaxy had never heard silence like this before. Not the silence of peace, not the silence of surrender. This was something deeper, heavier, like the moment before an explosion that could end the world. It began 2 weeks after Captain Ilara Voss was executed. The humans stopped talking. Every outpost, every colony, every surviving fleet, all of them went dark. No transmissions, no pleas, no declarations, just nothing. At first, the Empire mistook it for fear. The ministers celebrated. The Emperor even declared a day of submission, praising his final victory over the human defiance. Fireworks lit the skies of the capital world, their brilliant arcs reflected in the polished spires of the throne city. But down in the archives, deep beneath the celebration, Varric watched the silence stretch across the communication grid like a spreading shadow. System after system blinked offline. First Sol, then Titan, then the outer colonies. "Why are they cutting contact?" a young officer asked him, frowning at the flickering star map. Varric didn't answer immediately. He just stared at the growing black void where human space used to glow. Then, softly, he said the words that chilled the room. "They're not gone. They're listening." Weeks passed. Patrol fleets sent to human sectors reported strange anomalies, phantom readings, sensor ghosts, interference that twisted coordinates. One ship captain swore he saw something vast moving through the dust of Saturn's rings, something that wasn't natural. But when his logs were reviewed, the footage was corrupted. Soon after, his ship vanished too. The Empire dismissed it as system failure. But the pattern spread. Convoys disappeared along trade routes. Research stations stopped responding. Drones sent to investigate never returned. And still, silence. No threats, no demands, no signals of life. just that awful, deliberate quiet that filled every frequency like a warning from something patient and angry. Varric tried to bring it to the Emperor's attention again. "Your Majesty, this is not compliance. This is the calm before the fire. You've awakened something they were too afraid to show you before." The Emperor, surrounded by his gilded guards, waved him off. "Your paranoia grows tiresome. If they wish to vanish into the dark, let them. The Empire will move on." But Varric could see it already, the arrogance, the blindness that always came before collapse, the kind of pride that made empires think they were gods until they met something that proved them mortal. And then came the first sign. A mining convoy in the Danar cluster vanished without a trace. 43 ships, 300 workers, 5 war frigates as escort. Gone. No debris, no beacons. When Imperial Command sent a search fleet, they found only silence. That was until one scout ship recovered a single fragment of wreckage drifting near an asteroid field. It was a hull plate, melted, half vaporized. But etched into the metal, scorched by heat so intense it rewrote the surface, were 3 words burned in human script. "We remember Voss." The Emperor called it propaganda. Varric called it prophecy. In the following months, the disappearances multiplied. The Empire began losing fleets in systems so secure they hadn't seen battle in centuries. Communication lines were jammed by unknown frequencies, alien, yet unmistakably human. Reports described black ships that moved like shadows, silent and cold, with no transponder codes, no life signs, and no heat emissions. They attacked without warning and vanished without a trace. The Empire's analysts named them ghost fleets. Varric, however, knew the truth. "Not ghosts," he muttered, while reviewing the data logs. Retribution. The human retaliation began with precision, not chaos. They struck at fuel depots, shipyards, communication arrays, never civilians. They crippled the Empire's ability to coordinate, stripping away its power piece by piece. Each strike came with a calling card. A broadcast played across the wreckage. The voice was human, calm, and cold. "You killed her to silence us. You failed." That voice haunted every command deck it touched. Entire crews reported hearing it in their dreams, echoing through the corridors of their ships, even when systems were powered down. The Zircon military called it psychological warfare. Varric called it the sound of judgment. One evening, the veteran stood before the Imperial War Council, his hands folded behind his back, watching the officers argue about strategy. "They're striking our trade lines. They're sabotaging our hyperlanes. They're stealing our ships." And then Varric spoke, his tone calm but cutting. "They're not stealing. They're reclaiming. The ships they take, they rebuild. They adapt your own technology faster than any known species. You thought you conquered a primitive race, but you've just armed your executioners." The council fell silent. No one wanted to believe it. But the next day, proof came. A reconnaissance drone captured a brief image of something colossal drifting in the darkness beyond human space. A vessel larger than any Imperial dreadnought, its hull marked by both human and alien design, fused together like a Frankenstein of war. The Empire's scientists analyzed the data. One called it impossible. Another called it monstrous. Varric called it inevitable. "Sir," an aide whispered, showing him the analysis report. "It's engine output. No known reactor could generate that power." Varric took the datapad and read the name painted across the hull in crude white letters. It was burned, half obscured by carbon scoring, but still legible. REQUIEM. He knew what it meant. He'd heard the human word before. Requiem. a song for the dead. By the third month, the galaxy began to realize what was happening. Outlying species cut ties with the Empire, fearing to be caught in the storm. Merchants stopped trading in Imperial space. Whole sectors went dark. The Empire tried to reassert control, sending massive fleets to crush human strongholds. But those fleets never returned. In one of the final transmissions intercepted by command, an Imperial captain screamed before the line cut out. "They're inside the debris field. No, under it. Oh, stars, they're..." Static. That was the last they heard of the 9th Expeditionary Fleet. The Emperor grew furious, ordering total mobilization. Armies marched, war factories roared, but it was already too late. Humanity had become the ghost in their machine, the storm under their skin. Late one night, Varric stood on the balcony of his quarters overlooking the Imperial capital. Below, the city lights stretched endlessly, proud and glittering. He thought of Ilara Voss, her last words, her quiet defiance, that terrible smile before the execution. He whispered to the stars, "You told them, didn't you? You told them what would come." And somewhere, out there in the deep void, something vast and silent was listening. A ripple of power pulsed through the outer systems that very hour, unseen by most, but unmistakable to the few who could feel it. The humans had activated something old, something hidden. And when the first wormhole bloom appeared over the Kaltros belt, shimmering like a wound in the fabric of space, Varric knew what it meant. He straightened, his chest tightening. "They're not coming," he murmured. "They're already here." The first human warship didn't arrive quietly. It tore the heavens open like the universe itself was screaming. One moment, the Kaltros belt was calm, a corridor of drifting asteroids and merchant convoys, busy with the hum of commerce and the lazy chatter of pilots. Then, without warning, the stars bent. The light warped. Space cracked apart like glass. A wormhole erupted in the middle of the trade route, so massive it eclipsed the sun. Every ship nearby dropped out of formation, alarms blaring as sensors went mad. And from that swirling vortex of blue fire, something emerged. Something the galaxy had never seen before. It wasn't sleek or beautiful like Imperial ships. It was brutal, jagged, built for war, its armor black as night and scorched from atmospheric burns. The hull carried no emblem, no code, no markings except one symbol etched into the side. White paint over scarred steel. A broken chain wrapped around a star. The convoy's commander, a seasoned Zircon officer named Thress, leaned forward in disbelief. "Unidentified ship, you are trespassing in Imperial territory. Identify yourself immediately." No response. He repeated the command, voice shaking this time. "Unknown vessel, respond or be fired upon." Still silence. Then suddenly every console on his bridge flickered. His crew screamed as lights dimmed, power cut, and every screen turned black, except for one line of text glowing in human script across the main display. "We remember Voss." The moment the words appeared, the black ship opened fire. No one had ever seen weapons like those. Not plasma, not laser, not railgun. Something new, something raw. Bolts of condensed light carved through the vacuum like divine judgment, tearing destroyers apart in seconds. Thress barely managed to shout orders before his fleet was gone. 112 ships erased in less than a minute. The last transmission from his flagship was a single panicked scream caught in static. "It's not a ship! It's a revenant!" Then silence. The Empire dispatched an emergency task force, but by the time they arrived, there was nothing left. Only drifting wreckage, glowing faintly with radiation, and one object floating among the debris. A single Imperial helmet, with the same human words burned across its visor. "Don't kill her!" News spread across the empire like wildfire. The Emperor was furious, ordering the immediate mobilization of every nearby fleet. The media labeled the attackers human terrorists, but soldiers whispered another word: ghosts. Every report was the same. Ships appearing out of nowhere, attacking with impossible precision, then vanishing back into wormholes before reinforcements could arrive. But this was no random terrorism. It was a campaign, calculated, strategic, and personal. Humanity wasn't striking blindly. They were targeting the veins of the Empire: supply lines, refineries, command posts. Every system that had cheered Alara Voss's execution was now burning. Varric watched from the war room as holographic stars blinked red one by one. He said nothing for a long time. Then, quietly, "They warned us with silence. We mistook it for defeat." An aide turned to him, frightened. "Sir, how can they move so fast?" "They're not supposed to have this technology." "They didn't have it," Varric replied. "We gave it to them." Every battle we fought, every ship they salvaged, every scan of our weapons they took, they learned. They evolved faster than any species I've ever known. You don't understand. He looked up at the holo display, his voice shaking. They don't fight wars to survive. They fight to make sure no one ever does this to them again. Hours later, a transmission came through Imperial Command's secured channel, an open frequency, unencrypted. Every military screen in the Empire flickered to life. A woman's voice spoke through static. Calm, cold, human. You took our leader. You broke our home. You burned our skies. And now we're taking your future. The voice paused, as if savoring the silence that followed. This is for Alara Voss. The transmission ended. The Emperor ordered an immediate counterattack. 5 fleets, nearly 2,000 ships, were sent to intercept the humans in the Kaltros region. It was meant to be overwhelming, absolute. But when the fleets arrived, they found nothing. No human ships, no wreckage, no wormhole. Just the graveyard of their own lost vessels, and one beacon, still transmitting a simple message over and over. You killed her to silence us. You failed. The admirals hesitated. For the first time in centuries, Imperial Command froze in uncertainty. The enemy was invisible, unpredictable, untouchable. 2 weeks later, the humans struck again, this time at the heart of the Empire's pride, the shipyards of Urath Prime. It began at dawn. The sky turned crimson as alarms screamed across the capital world. Thousands of workers looked up and saw a rift bloom in the upper atmosphere, like lightning ripping through heaven. Then, from that rift descended a fleet of black ships, massive, silent, moving with terrifying precision. The Empire's planetary defenses opened fire, filling the sky with plasma. The humans didn't evade. They advanced straight through the barrage, their shields absorbing the fire like rain. When they reached orbit, they unleashed hell. Orbital cannons fell silent. Power grids failed. Every ship in dock erupted into flames as human strike craft swarmed through the docks, targeting fuel lines, reactors, communication hubs. By the time the Imperial fleet scrambled to respond, it was too late. The Urath Prime shipyards, centuries of engineering, billions of credits, a monument to the Empire's might, were gone in under an hour. And then came the message. It played across every surviving Imperial frequency, echoing through damaged halls and burning corridors. The same woman's voice, calm, clear, unstoppable. The name of the shipyards you just lost was Urath Prime. The name of the woman you executed was Alara Voss. Now the galaxy will learn the difference between justice and revenge. Then came a sound the aliens had never heard before. A deep, resonant tone, like a choir mourning the dead. It was a song, a human song. And over that haunting melody, her voice whispered, We told you not to kill her. That was the day the galaxy realized humanity wasn't returning to the stars. They were remaking them. The Empire's greatest fleets fell one after another. Command centers vanished overnight. Worlds once untouchable trembled under orbital shadows of human ships. The Requiem fleet had risen, an army born from silence and grief. And wherever they appeared, the stars themselves seemed to dim. When Varric stood before the Emperor one last time, the old veteran's voice was hollow. You wanted proof of their strength, Majesty. You have it, but you still don't understand what you've unleashed. The Emperor snarled. They will burn like all the rest. Varric shook his head. No, Majesty. They are not burning. He turned toward the window, watching distant flashes of battle on the horizon. They are teaching. That night, as the ruins of Ureth Prime glowed like dying embers in orbit, the stars seemed to whisper the same phrase, repeated through the hum of comms, across static, through broken transmissions, from every battlefield and shattered world. We remember Voss. And deep in the darkness of space, humanity's flagship, the Requiem of Dawn, drifted silently toward its next target, its hull reflecting the light of dying suns. On its command bridge, Admiral Kira Holt stared at the stars and spoke softly to the empty void. She didn't die for nothing. Then, with a single gesture, she gave the order that would echo across galaxies. Engage. The war had truly begun. They had seen stars die. They had seen black holes tear apart civilizations. But they had never seen humanity angry. Not like this. The first transmission from Earth came in silence. No speeches, no threats, no political posturing. Just a simple image. A blood-red flag with a single word beneath it. War. And the galaxy froze. Every sensor, every outpost, every spy drone orbiting Sol lit up at once. The humans were mobilizing, not in confusion, not in chaos, but with a terrifying, unified precision that only beings who remembered extinction could muster. Even the alien war veteran, old Kartek, the one who had tried to warn the Empire not to harm the human woman, stood in silent horror as reports came in. They are activating something beneath the oceans, whispered a young officer beside him. Structures, dormant for centuries. Kartek's 4 eyes narrowed. Those aren't structures, he said quietly. Those are war vaults. For decades, humans had kept the galaxy guessing about their true strength. They traded peacefully. They signed treaties. They kept to their colonies. The Empire called them primitive, useful for labor, disposable in war. But now the Empire understood the truth too late. Every continent on Earth was a fortress. Every moon base was a hidden armory. Every shipyard that once built freighters was suddenly pumping out warships. The First Fleet rose from the dark side of the moon, a wall of black hulls etched with glowing blue veins, their engines silent as death. Their flagship was named the Resolute Dawn, commanded by Admiral Hayes, the same man who had once begged for peace when the Empire took the human envoy prisoner. Now, Hayes's voice echoed across the galactic channels. Calm, cold, controlled. This is Admiral Hayes of the Terran Defense Command. You have executed one of our own, an envoy under truce. You have violated the First Contact Accord. We are done talking. The message lasted 7 seconds, and then humanity cut off all communications. The first strike came 40 hours later. The Empire's forward base in the Lorinth system, gone. A station the size of a moon, vaporized in a single pulse of concentrated energy. No survivors, no warning. Just a blinding flash that erased everything. The Empire's high command called it a terror act. They declared humans unstable, dangerous, savage. But Kartek, The old veteran saw it differently. "They are precise," he said grimly. "They didn't target civilians. They went for command relays, military supply chains, and communications hubs. This isn't rage. This is vengeance with a strategy the Empire's fleets rallied. Thousands of ships gathered under Admiral Sithra, a reptilian tactician known for crushing rebellions in record time. She'd never lost a battle in 2 centuries. "Bring me their fleets," she ordered. "I want Earth's orbit to burn." But when her armada arrived, they found nothing. Empty space. Dead signals. Then, movement. Out of the shadow of Saturn, a human vessel decloaked. Massive, quiet, predatory. The resolute Dawn faced the entire Imperial armada alone. Sithra laughed. "One ship? One?" Her second-in-command grinned. "Perhaps they've gone mad." But then the Dawn's front section split open like a flower. Thousands of small, triangular drones poured out, silent, coordinated, moving faster than light sensors could track. They didn't fire immediately. They waited. Then the command came. One single word, transmitted on every Imperial frequency: engage. What followed was not a battle. It was annihilation. The drones moved like a storm given purpose, slicing through destroyers, detonating reactors, disabling engines mid-flight. The Empire's ships fell apart one by one, shredded by invisible beams of energy that melted armor as if it were paper. Admiral Sithra tried to counterattack, ordering all ships to concentrate fire on the Dawn. But when the combined barrage struck, it did nothing. The beams vanished into a shimmering distortion field, and then the human flagship fired back. Once. A lance of white light cut across the void. Sithra's flagship, the glory of Threxar, vanished in a burst of silent fire. The rest of her fleet broke formation. They fled. Kar-Tek watched from the Imperial capital, horrified and awed. He turned to his Emperor, his voice shaking. "You didn't just start a war, Majesty. You woke something older than the stars." The Emperor scoffed. "They are humans. They bleed like any other." But the old veteran just stared out the window, watching reports flood in. Humanity wasn't just fighting. They were winning. System after system fell. Not through occupation, but through fear. Alien colonies surrendered the moment human fleets appeared in orbit. Civilians begged the Empire to stand down. Then came the most chilling report of all. The humans had taken the ruins of the execution site, where their envoy was killed, and built a monument there. A monument made of black alloy, inscribed with words in both Terran and Galactic script. "She came to make peace. You answered with blood. Now we answer with fire." The galaxy watched that transmission in silence. Millions of beings across hundreds of species realized what the Empire had done, and what was coming next. In less than a month, the humans had shattered 3 Imperial fleets, destroyed 6 forward bases, and taken control of vital hyperspace routes. Their ships operated without communication lag, without known weaknesses, without mercy. No one could explain how a relatively young species had mastered such warfare. But Kar-Tek knew. He had seen it before, in their eyes, long ago, during the border wars. "They remember pain," he said softly, "and they build from it." The Empire tried diplomacy then. A message was sent, offering peace negotiations. No response. Then they sent another, offering reparations. Again, silence. The third message was simply this: "What do you want?" Humanity replied with a single file, a recording of their envoy smiling, the woman they had executed. She was laughing in a diplomatic chamber, offering her hand to the Empire's ambassador. The video ended with her voice saying, "Let's make sure this galaxy never needs another war." Then came the final human transmission, spoken in Admiral Hayes's voice. "You should have listened to your veteran. He told you not to kill her." And then the connection cut. That was the moment. The very moment. The Galactic Empire realized that this wasn't just retribution. This was judgment, and humanity had only just begun. They said no one had ever silenced the Galactic Senate before, not once in 10,000 years. Until the humans spoke. The day began with thunder that wasn't thunder. A deep, low vibration that rattled the capital's floating citadels and turned every window into a trembling mirror. The Emperor's palace shuddered. The sky darkened, not from clouds, but from ships. 12 human fleets entered orbit without a word. 12, each one bearing a banner that gleamed against the light of the twin suns, a stylized human hand holding a flame. And at the center of that armada, a ship the size of a continent, the Deliverance. Its engines were silent. Its hull was blacker than space itself, absorbing light as though it hungered for it. Every world tuned in to the broadcast. Every leader, every soldier, every terrified civilian across the Empire watched as one image filled their screens. The bridge of the Deliverance, where Admiral Hayes stood beneath the Earth's flag. His face was stone, his voice calm enough to frighten gods. "Galactic Empire," he began, "your reign of fear ends today." No introduction, no justification, just those words, cold and certain, like a final judgment. Across the imperial capital, chaos reigned. Alarms howled through the marble halls as ministers screamed to activate planetary shields. But before the command could even echo, the shields flickered and died. Every power grid, every defense relay, every orbital cannon disabled simultaneously. "They're inside the systems!" shouted a technician. "Every frequency's compromised!" Tech, the alien war veteran who had once fought for the Empire, felt his stomach twist as he recognized what was happening. The humans weren't just fighting. They were surgically dismantling the most powerful civilization in known space. He whispered to no one, "They've learned too much. They've evolved past us." Then the broadcast changed. It wasn't Hayes anymore. It was her. The human envoy the Empire had executed, or rather, her recorded likeness. Her holographic form stood tall and calm, smiling gently as she had during her first diplomatic visit. "Do you remember me?" her voice asked, echoing through the Senate chambers, through starports, through entire planets. "You took my life to prove your strength. Now, your empire burns to prove ours." The Senate floor erupted in shouts, some in denial, some in prayer, some in regret. The Emperor rose from his throne, trembling with rage. "This is blasphemy! We are the center of civilization." The hologram turned toward him as though she could see him directly. "Civilization?" she said softly. "You built it on chains." And then the hologram vanished, replaced by a single image, a map of the galaxy. On it, every imperial world lit up red, one by one, then blinked out as human fleets cut through their defenses. The silence that followed was not peace. It was fear so thick, it felt alive. Tech stood in the command chamber, surrounded by younger officers. Their eyes were wide, reflecting the destruction spreading across the screens. "Tell me," one of them whispered, "how did you know this would happen?" The veteran's voice cracked. "Because I fought them once. Long ago, on the fringe worlds, we bombed their colony, thought we'd wipe them out. But the next morning they rebuilt. They came back with fire in their eyes and the bones of their dead in their hands. They don't yield. They adapt." He turned toward the window, where the Deliverance hung in orbit like a shadow carved into the heavens. And when you kill one of theirs, especially one who came in peace, you don't get forgiveness. You get history rewritten in your blood. Outside, a blinding light rippled through the void. It wasn't a weapon strike, it was a pulse, a transmission. Across the galaxy, every device, every comm, every datapad, every relay, activated at once, showing a message in 100,000 languages. Humanity offers surrender, not mercy. The meaning was unmistakable. They weren't asking for tribute. They weren't demanding control. They were ending an era, and when the Emperor refused to answer, when he spat curses and swore the Empire would rise again, Admiral Hayes gave the final order. The Deliverance's core flared to life. 12 beams of energy formed a lattice around the planet, and then collapsed inward, not as an explosion, but as an implosion. Every Imperial warship, every defense satellite, every orbital station disintegrated in a single, silent instant. The capital was left untouched, intentionally. Humanity didn't want ashes. They wanted witnesses. The Emperor fell to his knees as the sky turned crimson. "What are you?" he whispered. And through the comms, Hayes replied, voice soft as frost, "We are what you made us." For the first time in galactic history, the Empire surrendered, not to invasion, not to occupation, but to the sheer inevitability of a species that refused to die quietly. Months later, the war ended. The human fleets withdrew, leaving only one structure in orbit of the ruined capital, a black obelisk, identical to the one they'd built at the Envoy's death site. Its inscription read, "She wanted peace. You wanted power. Now remember her." And beneath those words, another line, carved in every known alien language, "Don't kill her. You were warned." The galaxy entered a new age, one where every empire that rose after spoke softly when approaching Earth, one where diplomacy began with respect, not fear. As for Kar Tek, the old veteran who had tried to stop it all, he left the Imperial remnants and traveled to Earth himself. When he landed, no soldiers greeted him, no guns aimed, just silence. He stepped out beneath a blue sky and whispered, "You've changed everything." From the horizon, a human child handed him a flower, the same kind the Envoy had once carried to her first meeting with the Empire. Kartek knelt, tears in his eyes. "Your people burned the stars," he said softly. The child looked up at him, innocent and unknowing, and replied, "We only wanted them to listen."